Continuing on with the deck suggestions and the 7-star free battles from DLC 12, we are doing yet another suggestion by Tyrese Jackson. And I think I've done a couple or so for him in the past. I don't really recall. It's been a while, but continuing on. First going to start off with Pan. Going to quickly go over the deck he suggested and the dupes that I, of course, chose just because I think they're going to benefit the team overall. So, Whis, very important to have a huge HP pool, because while the defense is decent, it's not the highest, even if you put dupes into his defense, but I'd rather just have HP there, especially with the suggestion, because he had me go with defense up second, defense up F, and FHP cure FHP 50L. Which is really going to help him out. Vados, still a mainstay, still a very overpowered figure. Going with the defense version. Do this one entirely in HP for obvious reasons. The amount of defense she has is ridiculous as is. Defense up second, defense up F, she's going to have 4,000 defense with these two skills. Along with FHP cure FHP 50L. Which again is really going to help her. And surprisingly, SR Zamasu, which you don't really see very often, or at all for that matter, he's not that bad. And this one I duped entirely into attack because otherwise he'd have a really meddling attack stat, which just wouldn't be all too beneficial. This is the more defensive version. Got more HP as well. Only thing I don't really like, which doesn't really matter all too much, because you're probably going to be focusing on just putting out Whis, Vados, and Goku the whole time anyway. You can use Zamasu for your master. I think that's his main function. If you're trying to go second, though, of course, the thing that's going to get in the way the most is his repeatable 500 speed each turn. Other than that, he's just great, especially for the master. Defense up second, defense up forward, defense up every turn. And then the attack version of the first Super Saiyan 4 Goku. I went ahead and duped him entirely in HP because he's going to have attack up second, defense up second, and ultimate gauge on every turn. You can just stick him out there with Vados and Whis the whole time. One thing I will note though, Tyrese, is I would recommend replacing attack up second with ADM up second. You're going to get more out of it because it adds 20% of the figure's attack stat to their own attack. So you're already getting 1,100 and some change, as opposed to just a flat 1,000. Just something to keep in mind. I didn't change it though, of course, because I don't want to mess with anyone's suggestions. Just gonna show them as is. Then we have one of the new best figures in the game, Final Form UR Frieza. Went ahead and duped him entirely into attack. He's got a spot safely tucked behind Vados. If I need to put him in the upper middle, I can go ahead and do so. FHP cure, FHP 50L, ultimate gauge on every turn. This is just such an obnoxiously great skill, by the way. FHP cure, FHP 50L. Seriously, that's a mouthful. Use that especially in defensive teams, because that is going to help you so much. Let's start off with Pan. I'm gonna scooch closer here, give me a sec. There we go. Pan's running Kid Buu, who are Blue Vegito, supervillain self for some reason. Trunks makes sense, don't really understand the Super 17. For all the GT figures, like Omega Shenron and such. Oh well. I'm already kind of seeing the strategy with this deck. One thing I will say though is it's a little bit dangerous not to have an ON figure in the deck. And specifically, I'm talking about online. With AI, it's probably fine. Just something to keep in mind. One thing I'm not too fond of in this deck is just the lack of board coverage. got every trigger square covered except for the bottom left. Which is fine, it's a very defensive setup anyway, but just personal preference. It is a very solid strategy, though, I will say that, because you got Super Saiyan 4 Goku constantly decrease the enemy's damage. He's constantly buffing himself. He's covering your middle columns, so you don't have to worry about your master getting hit. Very solid setup. He's even got HP to heal himself. Wait, no, he doesn't. He does not. Okay. You know, that might be something you could also try. You know, that might work pretty well, too, because he already has more than enough attack a lot of the time. His trigger square is obnoxiously good. You could even maybe get rid of attack up second for the FHP cure thing. Just a suggestion, but I'm pretty sure you don't want to rely on having Goku out the whole time. You eventually want to start doing serious damage. Which is probably why the UR Final Form freezes in the deck. As good as Super Saiyan 4 Goku is, I think Frieza is going to do a little bit more. But Goku especially needs to exist for a few turns to even start hitting really high numbers. Frieza's got a very nice flat 7,000 looped entirely into attack. I want to say it was like 7,200 or so, I gotta look. The new UR Final Form Frieza is really good, but I personally prefer the Janemba for obvious reasons. I just think he's so much better. In fact, I would even go as far to say is he's pretty much the new UR Final Form Frieza, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and the defensive UR Fat Buu combined. He's ridiculous. $72.30. Yeah, that's really good, all things considered. I'm gonna try my best to get through the rest of the 7-star free battles with this deck, but no promises. Don't want this running too long, and I know recently I've been putting out longer vids. I know some people don't mind them, they actually prefer that, but I'm pretty good with just 10 to 15 minutes. Goes to Kid Buu. Oh crap, they have about 2 skills. That shouldn't be terrible though. Ought to be okay. Some other options I think that might work other than Zamasu, just because you already have like more than enough defense and attack coverage across this deck. You could even maybe throw on Toa just to screw with your opponent. You really need to heal your master that bad. That's something you can do also. Get an ult up with her and then everyone's fine. In conjunction with the FHP cure. I think that'd be really broken. Which do I think is better between Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Janemba? That's a very good question. I would say if you're going for a more aggressive approach, go with the Janemba. You want to play it safe and still do tons of damage, just go with the Super Saiyan 4 Goku. It's a lot safer. Because not only is he increasing his attack by 10% each turn, he's also decreasing everyone on the field by 10%. No, I'll ult with Frieza. They've lost more than enough damage. And I don't even need to go first at all. I can just go second and still deal ridiculous amounts of damage. That is one nice thing about not having an 0-1 figure. When you get an ult up, you can play it safe and not really worry about being too aggressive. Just put Vados and Whis on the field with whoever you prefer to have get their ult off. Oh, he's got Death Meteor. I thought he would have had, like, Death Ball, but that's what I get for not looking at their, a lot of these figure stats, I suppose. Death Meteor is really freaking good, though. I highly recommend using it on any striker. It's a reliable ranged ultimate with homing rocks that deal quite a bit of damage. And you've seen what I can do with that and the Male Saiyan. What I like doing with that is I'll do the 5 basic and the 2 heavies on the Male Saiyan. I'll use that, and then right after I'll do a Shining Slash. The amount of damage that does is ridiculous. Let's see, where are we at, man? Yeah, that battle went on for quite a while, surprisingly. Moving on, let's get to Jocko. We'll probably call it after Jocko, just because that ran a little bit long. That's another thing with running more defensive decks. You're a lot safer in the long run, but it's going to make the fights take that much longer. It's funny too, actually. I didn't record it, I wish I did. I did run into somebody in Kanton. They were using Whis, Vados, Piccolo, Champa, and Videl. The deck that I showed off with Whis, Vados, Ranger 17, EX Gogeta, and Q. Because I had that Gogeta, and because I had that Ranger 17 adding and piling on all that defense, I was able to win relatively easily. It actually came a lot closer than I thought it would. I got Spirit Bombed, unfortunately, but thankfully it was nowhere near enough to do me in. I got him to a point where I backed him into the corner. He didn't really have any choice but to go a turn or two without putting another figure on if he wanted to keep up with me in terms of Master HP. Didn't really work out too well for him, though. Just overwhelmed him with the ridiculous amounts of defense I accumulated throughout that fight. Ranger 17 is really freaking good. You may or may not get more mileage, however, if you were to put Super Saiyan 4 Goku on the field instead, because you're going to constantly decrease their damage, of course. I like the Ranger 17 with that deck, though, because just get Whis and Vados even tankier and tankier as the match goes on. I want to say he adds 250 defense to all allies each turn. That's pretty freaking huge. If Vados is hardly doing any damage at all. That's kind of why I like putting on attack up second, ADM up second, and defense up second on her. Because, yeah, she is very defensive it's going to be really difficult to kill her, but she's not really doing that much damage herself either. I think your damage should, like, your attack, I think it should be at least 3,800. Kind of like Zamasu here. That's also why I have him duped entirely into attack. So, he's not hitting the hardest, but he hits hard enough. That's where I kind of personally draw the line in terms of, like, more defensive decks and just overall attack stats. You can have the most defensive team, but if you don't have at least decent enough damage as the match goes on, you're just asking to get annihilated by, like, an opponent's 0-1 figure or something. At the same time, though, they have to make sure that they have a deck that can break through defenses like these, because this is a very solid setup that Tyrese has suggested. I also think it's just overall better to run Super Saiyan 4 Goku with dupes and HP, because he can stick around that much longer. He can make himself even stronger, picking up for that lack of otherwise duped attack he could have had, while also sticking around longer to weaken your opponent. Very beneficial. Going forward, by the way, yes, I am still taking suggestions. I feel like not enough people who make the suggestions are including figure numbers and dupes. You know, enough people are at least recommending what figure they have in mind. Like, for Vados, that's really easy to figure out. There's only one UR Vados. I'm talking about characters that have multiple URs, though. It would really help me out if, going forward, people who make their suggestions include, if you're able to, include the figure numbers, include the dupes, how you want their added stats, with the copies, of course, and then also the character skills, of course. It would just really help me out, and we won't have to play comment tag or anything. And I know RJ Carabella is probably watching right now. I still don't know which Bardock you're wanting me to use. The Super Saiyan 3 Bardock. There are two different Super Saiyan 3 Bardocks, each with, you know, two different versions. So when I see both versions of Super Saiyan 3 Bardock, do you mean like for one specific Super Saiyan 3 Bardock, or do you mean one of each 3 Bardock? That's what I'm talking about. I don't really know which ones you're referring to. So that's why I'm hesitant to get to your next suggestion. It would help if I knew in advance the figure numbers. Dupes aren't really too important. They're just preferred because it'll give me a better idea of how you want your deck to be showcased. As long as I got the figure numbers at least and the character skills, we're pretty good. It's just something to keep in mind. One thing I also do want to say is I want to go ahead and give Rocky Robo a shout out, because I did catch his most recent vid. I never knew about the how-to videos being really that much of a factor in terms of growing your channel. I think he might be onto something, because I uploaded that how-to video recently and it like instantly got 30 views or so, which surprised me a bit. So I think there might be something to that. I might do a few more of those in the future. Again, I don't expect to go very far with this whole YouTube thing, but I don't know, could be fun. I enjoy helping out players who are struggling, especially with ridiculous challenges like 122, which hopefully a lot of you can easily handle now. Where are we at in recording? Yeah, we're gonna call it there. Jesus, that went on for 20 minutes, just those two battles. Tends to happen though with the really defensive setup, but anyway, thank you all for watching. I will catch you next time with more Mario World playthrough, and then another suggestion. I'm gonna go sleep for right now though. Peace.